Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else. Here's your host, the president of New York's largest independent union, Suffolk AME's Dan Leveler.
Welcome to another edition of Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5 and 94.3 The Shark, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News and views you can't hear anywhere else.
So my guest this morning is Anna Marie Cuccinella. She is the new AME treasurer. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Dan.
It's great to have you here. And, you know, I want to just start a little bit on background with you, talking about your work at the Parks Department before we get into the work that you do at AME and what your vision is for what that work should look like. So I guess we could just start with why Suffolk County Parks and the AME members working there are so important.
Sure. So our AME members, they obviously keep our parks operational, clean, and safe. From our maintenance workers to our laborers, they keep our parks safe and accessible. They upkeep the sites, they maintain facilities. There's various trades among the parks performing electrical work, plumbing, signage. They maintain housing facilities, historic sites. Honestly, like, what don't they do? We do everything. Our administrative staff oversees operations. They help draft, execute, and oversee contracts for catering vendors, golf, camping reservation systems, historic housing, marinas. We have many not-for-profits. We have sporting groups. And Parks is unique in that our unit includes both white-collar and blue-collar workers.
Sure.
So collectively, they are all vital to our operations at the parks, and they do a great job.
You know, the Parks Department, while doing all these things, you know, we talk about the social aspects and everything else, but the Parks Department is able to generate revenue for the county.
Absolutely.
And which is a great thing. There's a number of departments inside of Suffolk County that make more money than they spend, Parks being one of them. But let's talk a little bit about how the Parks Department generates revenue.
Okay, so that's correct. Parks is a revenue generator for the county. Rather than relying on taxes alone, the costs to acquire and maintain parkland are largely offset by revenue generated from parking fees, camping reservation fees. We have a trap and ski facility at South Haven. We have numerous golf courses with locations at West Sayville, Bergen, Indian Island, Timber Point. Those locations also have restaurants and catering concessions on site, which generate revenue. We have beachside restaurants at Mashut and Cupsog, and we also have a camp store and a restaurant at Smith Point. So all of these together not only add to the recreational enjoyment of our members and the public, which is very important, but they do provide much needed revenue to the county.
Sure, yeah. And, you know, again, you talk about the general fund. We've talked about this on the radio show many, many times. It's usually, for most folks, they put it in the operating budget every year when they put the budget forward in front of the legislature. And last I looked, it was less than $90 on average per household that goes into the general fund for the year. And that provides a ton of services, not just what the parks does, but all sorts of other places. But the reason why the general fund is so low is because the other areas where we're able to generate revenue, places like the parks and a few other departments. So that's, I think that's an excellent way at looking at the value of the parks. You know, it's there for people. It's set up right. It's great. People that go there tend to go there frequently and really enjoy it. And there's a little offset, like you say, with parking, or maybe they want to buy something, some camping supplies or whatever. But I want to talk a little bit now about, you know, now you have, you know, this role in the union as treasurer, but before that you were involved in your unit, just for the folks at the Parks Department. And you were in as executive vice president, and I think before that as secretary, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But, you know, what got you interested first and foremost in getting involved on the unit level?
So about 8 years ago, I was a new county employee. I came in from the private sector, and becoming a public employee was new for me. I started, I was now invested in benefits, specific wages, retirement, so many issues that I had not really had to address before. And, and having conversations with my coworkers and our unit president, which quickly, he came and he introduced himself to me and he gave me some information. I realized that there was work to do and there was an opening to get involved and to, do some good in contributing my time and my efforts. So I did inquire about getting involved, and luckily there was a spot open for me as secretary. So I went in, I started learning more about the union, getting more involved, participating in events, and shortly thereafter, I had the opportunity to move up as executive vice president, which afforded me the opportunity to work more with our members. I was able to get out, reach out to our members, see what the issues were, see what needed to be addressed, and bring information to them. I was able to attend some board of directors meetings, and I found that I really enjoyed being there for our parks members. I really enjoyed checking in, hearing about their day-to-day operations, finding out where assistance was needed and what needed to be improved. And, it just kind of snowballed from there,
Sure did. And, people sometimes get bit by this advocacy bug, right? Like they just realize I can help people and I want to.
Right.
And throughout my career, I have found that most of the union leaders I dealt with have some sort of specific event in their life where they realized, one, I want to be in a union, and two, I want to be involved in my union. But, I guess something interesting for our listeners to think about being in a union is why you started thinking about things like specific wages and retirement benefits and what healthcare would look like and everything else. And most people don't think that way because they're not in a union and they don't get those benefits. It's folks like yourself, myself, the whole team that we have in unit leadership, in executive board leadership that goes, puts all their time and effort in to try and grow what it means to have a job somewhere. Some folks, a lot of folks, we're seeing in the tech industry right now, you're seeing folks who've worked for 16, 17, 18 years and then just get an email saying you're fired, and that's that. Right. And you can't do that in a union job. If you have a union job, even if you made a mistake at work and they know you made a mistake, there's due process. They have to go through the process. And sometimes we find out, although the employee made a mistake, they weren't properly trained and therefore didn't actually hold the liability. It was the supervisor who was supposed to train them in a specific way. That didn't happen. They keep their job. They get their training. They go on to have meaningful careers. And a lot of people that get involved, in municipal work, they stay on for 30 years, 35 years. They do a full stretch of their work life inside of, this union environment because they're safe. They have guaranteed, the boss can't come in and cut your hours for the week. You must provide work. And if you don't have work, you've got to pay me anyway. And the reason being is it's got to be fair. We're trading time for money, and we're trading, a valuable portion of our life. Folks sometimes talk about, well, it's an 8-hour day, and then you get 8 hours to yourself, and then you get, so, 16 hours a day belong to you, yeah, but you need 8 of those to sleep. And the 8 that you actually get is spent, doing chores and whatever. So, working people tend to, on a work day, get an hour or two to themselves, and that's about it. Right. And in exchange for all of that time and effort, union folks, we like to band together, and we want to make sure that people are protected in their jobs. Absolutely. And that they're properly compensated and that there is something for them at the end. It's what the whole misnomer on pensions. Folks think, you work for the government, maybe working at the Parks Department, and then you retire and you get, $200,000 a year for the rest of your life. That's not the way it works. Mm-hmm. The average payout in the pension system is around $35,000 or $40,000. It's not much.
Unions have been historically formed to ensure fair wages, benefits, better working conditions for their members. Unionized workers are proven to enjoy significant advantages over their non-unionized workers, which includes safer and fairer work practices, better pay, benefits, more work-life balance, like you just discussed, and regular wage increases, which I feel is how it should be. We all have families to support, and at the end of the day, having our union backing us definitely gives us an advantage.
Sure, and right now we're very closely watching legislation put forward by the governor. The state of New York that wants to put into place mandatory raises that follow CPI, so that this way, if a contract is negotiated, say, over a 5-year period of time, and all of a sudden cost of living ends up going up significantly more, it forces the employer to give better raises, because the fact of the matter is, if you're making the same or a little bit more than you did the year before, but your expenses have increased because, grocery store, gas prices, all the things that we've seen recently that people like to talk about, then you've actually taken a pay decrease.
Right.
So that's a very interesting piece of legislation, which is driven by unions. We get in and we get involved and we talk about not just our members, right? Not just the members of the Parks Department, not just AME members, but working people everywhere. We like to drive the bus, so to speak, to make sure even those folks that aren't represented are taken care of fairly.
Absolutely.
So let me just read this question the way it is. What does it mean to be an active and engaged member? So, a person at the Parks Department that's not involved on the unit level as an advocate, but is just someone that works there. But we see that folks in different departments are active and engaged union members. And what do you think that means?
It's funny because now that I did step into this new role, I'm actually having a lot of, people and members reach out to me and congratulate me and send strangely quotes, things that they see that are important or things that they feel are important. And something somebody just sent me actually yesterday, it really hit home, and I don't know if it's going to have the same impact without the visual with it, but they said one person is easy to break, but with a group, a union, solidarity, no one is able to break us. And I think what I would love our members to know is that, we have to remain active, not only at contract negotiation time. We can't just show up to complain about what we want and what we're not getting. We have to remain active all the time. We have to stay diligent in holding administration accountable, showing up for political action, committee and events, and being there when, they're called upon to show up. There are many ways they can get involved. They can join their unit boards. They can come in and assist, various political candidates that come in requiring support. They can come to our events. There are numerous ways that they can get involved, but I think at the end of the day, the most important part is that they have to stay involved, and that should be consistent at all times.
Yeah, I kind of think of, you say, the saying that you had might be more impactful with a visual. And I remember seeing at one point in time a big fish and a little fish, and the big fish said employer and the little fish said the worker. And then the next panel is the big fish swimming the opposite direction of all the little fishes that were much larger than the big fish, because, when you talk about this, we use AME as an example. If management has 100, 150 people, 400 people, doesn't matter. The rest of AME is 6,000. You talk about political action. If a legislator were to propose legislation that would be harmful to workers, and we say we're going to put 2,000 people outside of your office tomorrow, right, and we put 2,000 people outside of the office, and the press is there and the whole nine, it does put some pressure on that elected official to make sure that they don't do things to harm workers, and they know that.
It does, and we are capable of doing so. If we get one of us standing out there or, 5 of us, it's quiet and it's not that much of an impact. And you get a couple of hundred of us and it's loud and it definitely catches attention. But if you get a few thousand of us, which we are capable of doing, it's deafening, and it's just, we're a voice that cannot be ignored, and we have to remember that, because in our numbers we hold significant power, so we have to stay aware and make sure that we're getting involved in this.
Sure. I think that's one of the reasons why we try to keep our members informed on certain key issues. One way to handle it is just for us to quietly handle things behind the scenes and try and get something fixed. Mm-hmm. But if we inform our members and our members start adding their voices to ours, and there's been points in time where we've had call to action, and we say to people, listen, such and such legislator needs to hear from you. Here's the issue. This is what's going on. And our members will send in thousands and thousands of emails. These individuals get to realize, it wasn't some story that I was making up when I was having a conversation with them to say, I think people are going to be really upset about it. Mm-hmm. Now they have thousands of examples of the people who are upset about, and it gives them pause. It makes them think, maybe what I'm trying to accomplish and the way I'm trying to accomplish it are two different things, and I need to reevaluate. So
correct. And we are, like you said, all individuals, right? And we are a diverse membership. And I think that, our diversity it's what makes us. That diversity is we come together, and I think collectively we all get it right. You can't take one individual and have one idea. With all our ideas, we present it, and we have an army behind us. And I think that, collectively we really have the power to make the change that we need to make.
Yeah, and we have a lot of diverse folks in our population, not just age or gender or whatever else, but like different walks of life, different professions. So some of the best ideas out there, they don't have to be mine and your ideas.
Right.
They can come from our members, and you listen, and if you're attuned to it, you say, "That's the best idea I've heard about this. We're going to use your idea, and we're going to get the most done that way."
Right.
So it's not a bad thing.
Absolutely.
So you and I share something in common in that we both attended a similar school. It was a school specifically designed for folks to learn more about the labor movement and what to do and how to do it, and that is Cornell's Labor Relations. So tell me a little bit about what your experience. I remember quite clearly for me what my experience was like, but tell me a little bit from your perspective what it was like to go in and be part of that experience.
Before I started, I actually had someone tell me that the experience was life-changing. And admittedly, I rolled my eyes. I said, it's a course. How life-changing is this going to be? And honestly, I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into when I entered the ULI program. My expectations were to increase my knowledge of union history and procedures. I wanted the education, and that was accurate. But what I didn't expect was to grow so much, not only as a union leader, but personally as well. I mean, the program provided me with immeasurable amounts of tools and confidence to move forward with my leadership mission. It assisted me in identifying my strengths, my weaknesses, identifying my goals, and being surrounded by the education and the history and these, other union leaders across the state. It really helped me grow, and it gave me the confidence that I needed to push forward and to support our members strongly and efficiently.
Yeah, and I got to say, they are really good at putting you outside of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. I remember, a number of examples, but at one point in time, they were talking to all of us, a group of us, probably about 50 people in our class. Was a larger class size than they normally would have. And they were talking about introverts and extroverts, and they just named a few people. I think it was maybe 10 of us, and they made 5 go to one room, and they made 5 go to another room while they continued the discussion. Mm-hmm. And I got kicked out of class along with the other 9 people. But when I walked into the area where they had me had me waiting, and I looked at all the people that were in that room, and I'm like, oh, I guess we're the extroverts.
Okay.
And sure enough, what they did was then bring you back into the room. So what they did, they brought the introverts in first and sat them in a circle in front of the whole room and said, "Day at the beach. Go ahead." And the introverts sat there in dead silence and didn't talk for, 5-10 minutes. And then they brought in the extroverts, and they said, "Day at the beach," and all of us were talking all over each other and just like blah, 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 blah. And, within 5 minutes, we had a great plan, and we knew everyone who was getting invited and, whatever. But it was a moment where, for me, that was, it wasn't particularly uncomfortable because I was in the extrovert group. Right. I didn't mind just talking to a room full of strangers about the idea of a day at the beach. But for the introverts, that had to be remarkably uncomfortable. And while they were doing a demonstration for the room, they wanted the room to understand and be able to see the difference. It was remarked on after the fact the introverts really, really, really didn't like that. They didn't want to do that part. And I thought that was interesting. And there was points in time where they made everybody uncomfortable on some level. But one, you formed friendships. You learned about ideas and concepts that you normally wouldn't. And in that, it wasn't necessarily like union leadership stuff. It was like real personal stuff about the people that were in the class. Some of their their life history, some of the way they look at the world. It's very interesting. It also teaches you, I guess, on some level. At least I felt it taught me not to look at the folks at management as anything other than people with jobs, right? And we advocate for people with jobs. So when the person across from me is a person with a job and they're trying to accomplish something, rather than me attacking them and trying to force them to do what I want them to do, I seek to understand what their issue is and show them a way that they can get the thing done they need without hurting our members. And we've been successful with that. Again, for a long time, I can remember throughout AME history, from my involvement, You would settle a contract and then there would be nothing. And then you'd settle another contract and then there'd be nothing and whatever. And, over the last 8 years, we have consistently added value. So even while being in a contract, we sit down and we talk to management and we say, there are problems here and we need to fix these problems. And we continue to have those conversations. But I think part of the reason we're able to do that is because it's not so adversarial. There is a level of professional respect that we have for each other in that I understand they're people with jobs and they're going to be working through all sorts of stressful situations and all sorts of stressful times. And while we're not agreeing on an issue, it doesn't mean that I can't be agreeable in my disagreement, right? As a concept.
So going back to what you said about the introverts and the extroverts, and at Yulee, I found myself on the opposite side of the fence. I found myself to be an introvert. And it took me a little while to speak up and to put my thoughts out there and my vision. And surprisingly, I found that when I did, I received a lot of support from the various union leaders that were there and respected members that were within the class. And it definitely encouraged me to speak up more. I found my voice. And I really believed in why I was there and what I wanted to bring forward now coming into this new role. I think it is outstanding that we're able to get increases for members outside of contract negotiation time. I feel that, it's incredible, it's unheard of, and it speaks volumes about the relationships that you have built with administration, and it really encourages me. I'm really excited to be here, and I hope that my voice and the training that I received at Yulee can benefit our members in such a way as well.
I am certain it will. You and I have already had some conversations in the office, and you've asked me, can I get involved in, this? Can I help work on a particular whatever, and all these thoughts and ideas that you've had, I like them, and I immediately said yes. But I also, I explained why I was saying yes. And the reason why I was saying yes is because I've been trying to get that type of work going for quite some time. And I think I think you and I share an understanding in that we're really here to serve, right? That's the number one thing that we're doing. We're here to see our members, talk to our members, find out what's on their minds, what's working well, what's not working well, and go back and address those issues. And I think because we have a team, we've got, again, executive board leadership and we've got unit leadership, we can all get together and talk through these different ideas and learn more. I've said before we have a board of directors with some 30 additional people, so the executive board and then representatives of each department. And I see the county has their experts in every department. It's their commissioners. It's their managers. Well, the union has their experts also that are in the departments and know what's going on best. And that's them. That's these unit leaders. And we really need to work collaboratively to achieve all these things. So it's not just it's not something that just happens because I wake up one day and I'm worried about a particular job. And how it's going, and so I start having conversations or whatever else. It tends to be very collaborative. It tends to be a bunch of us talking, and we start realizing, wait a minute, this is a problem. We have a problem over here, and we need to fix it. And then we need to start strategizing and planning and doing all of the research necessary to make sure we have all the data to make our arguments and the whole nine. But yeah, we've been successful because it's been a team. And I think the way that you're looking at things is, very much aligned with the way I've been looking at things. And I hope, I've always noticed certain personalities work better with other people. We talked about introverts and extroverts and whatever. There are going to be people who just don't quite jive with me like they'll jive with you. And so having this diversity that we have on the executive board, on the board of directors, our delegates, all throughout our membership, that presents us with so many different opportunities to find the right people, to talk to the right people, to get things done.
I'm fresh from the other side. I am essentially one of our members. And, coming into this, I'm excited about the board that I'm joining. I'm excited to work with you and the executive board members. I do have a lot of ideas. I think I've approached you with, sort of I see you or we see you campaign because I do see our members and I care about them and I'm passionate about making change and making the right kind of change that's going to affect not only our members, but their families and
Sure.
the public in general, and things that are going to make the county a better place. And that starts with us. I think, we are the backbone, I feel, of the county. We make it work. And I feel that, we have great people here and we're constantly told to do more with less. And I don't believe that. I don't believe we should do more with less. I feel like, our members are working hard and they're constantly asked to work harder and they're doing a great job. And I think they need to be acknowledged for that. So, that's my intention, is just to see every single member and make sure that they know that they're seen and heard and bring those issues to the forefront so we can improve the quality of their lives.
Yeah, and you're right. It improves the quality of their families' lives as well. And I guess the more eloquent way that you had mentioned, you said, maybe you said this more eloquently, and I've been saying this a lot inside of the office when we talk to people, but I think it's real. One key doesn't open every door, right? And there are some keys that open a lot of doors, but they don't open every door. And the fact of the matter is, different people jive differently. And so there's room for everybody to be involved. There's anyone who wants to get involved and, becoming a union member. That's, anyone out there listening and saying, well, my job doesn't have a union. Well, there's simple steps to form a union, and that's something you should think about. And if you're a union member and you want to get involved in your union, there is a pretty good chance, like 99.999% chance, that you can do something that would help your union that you would do better than anyone else. And so, I want to just applaud you for taking the plunge. It's not an easy thing to have someone come along and say, hey, listen, you have this existing career. You know what your life structure is. Like your life is set up a particular way. Please leave all that behind. Work tremendously harder for more hours. No change in anything else, and potentially, take grief for it too, right? There's going to be points in time where people aren't happy with the decision that was made, or don't understand something that's being done, or were misinformed. These things happen, and then folks will be upset with you, like they get upset with me, like they get upset with some other people, and whatever. And then we go out and we explain ourselves, and we kind of straighten things out. But the fact of the matter is, you're putting yourself in harm's way on purpose, uprooting your life. For the sole goal of trying to help other people with jobs and improve their lives and their families' lives. So I got to say thank you for saying yes.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. And I acknowledge that at times, I won't be everyone's cup of tea, or I won't say the right thing, or whatnot. But I always encourage people to come in and address those issues, get involved, find out why things are the way that they are, and get involved to do something about it.
Sure. It always starts with a conversation, I have found there's been some people that have been very upset about whatever it was that they were upset about, and they're angry, maybe their voice is elevated, they're gesturing angrily and the whole night. But as you listen to what they're saying, if you take the emotion out of it, all of a sudden you can pick up on what the actual thing is. Mm-hmm. And then once you know what the thing that needs to be addressed is, and you can just calmly explain, okay, I think here's what I'm hearing. Is this what you think, the issue is? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, yes, that's exactly what the issue is. Okay, we're going to start working on that, right? And you can have these conversations with me before you get mad, or you can have them with me when you're mad. It doesn't matter. But every step of the way, it always starts with a conversation. So just, I guess, a question that interests me, right? I had my job over at Public Works. I used to deal with elected officials. I used to deal with management, not just on the department level, but, county-wide management on some issues here and there, and I thought my job prepared me for this job, and it did no such thing. But you had a job prior to this as a contract examiner, and now you're in as a treasurer. And how do you feel that, that job as a contract examiner helped prepare you for this role?
Walking into this, I think I had an idea of what this job was going to be, and it was just going to be a lot of, dotting my I's, crossing my T's, pushing numbers. The financial code, it pretty much outlines exactly what my responsibilities are, which they are. But now that I'm here, I'm seeing, that there's other work to be done. There's other communication with unit presidents and budgets and collecting their financial reports and their budgets. And as a contracts examiner, I did a lot of drafting and implementing contracts and agreements to ensure compliance with contract terms and law. And I think that'll be beneficial as I do administer, our finances and our budgets. I did a lot of overseeing the collection and accounting of revenue, which also I feel will be beneficial as I'm preparing our financial records. Outside of the county, I have, a ton of experience working with the federal government from administrative standpoint. I've provided administrative and financial support for engineering and construction contracts for probably about 20 years, doing accounts receivable, payable, proposal writing. I've successfully assisted in millions of dollars in construction contracts, and I've always performed them, efficiently with multiple jobs running concurrently. And I'm a good multitasker. I'm organized, and I hope to bring those skills forward.
Sure. Yeah, and there's the job on paper, right? And if you were to look at the job on paper, like you reference the financial code, you look at the financial code, it says this is what you're supposed to do. And that'd be great if that's all you had to do. This job would probably be, you're well suited for it. But the fact of the matter is, about 90% of what you have to do isn't in the financial code, and it has to do with advocacy and having conversations with people, figuring out what needs to be fixed, things that need to work better, and they don't necessarily translate back to treasury or financial issues. And it may just be someone at their job that happens to get you on the phone and wants to talk to you about a particular issue at their job, and now here you are dealing with that. You're not, looking at QuickBooks or, signing checks or, reviewing a contract. All of a sudden you're getting involved in a unit. And, again, like I say, I came from Public Works, is very familiar with the work that I did, but I do not know too much on a day-to-day basis on what it's like to be a nurse in the jail, right? I just don't know what that's like. I can think through what it might be, but the nurses know that, right? And that's,
Right.
In a similar way, you know what you know, and a lot of what you're going to do is going to be outside of your comfort zone or outside of your, your normal, natural experience, but you just dive in and you get it done.
Right. And I know what I know. I thought I knew. I came in, I hit the ground running. I grabbed our financials. I started organizing and going through unit financials and our budget. I was able to complete the budget report for board of directors. And then really quickly, I started getting phone calls. I was put on the 401A and deferred comp board. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days before I started receiving calls from members with questions about SCAT and different funds. And, I was just kind of thrown into it, and you just do it. You just go, and it's been exciting. And it's really not what I expected. I mean, the work is what I expected, but the rest of it and all of these added responsibilities were not expected, but they're exciting and they're necessary.
I got to bring this full circle a little bit. And it strikes me the irony of this. We're talking about advocating for someone on their job, and then finding out that their training wasn't correct, and therefore that person shouldn't be punished for something that went wrong because they didn't receive training. And we constantly preach that. We go out and we say, you have to train these people the right way. You can't just go around telling people they're doing a bad job without explaining why. But the fact of the matter is there's no training for this, right? Even the training that we've discussed throughout this conversation about the different courses that we've been to, and this specifically the Yulee class, doesn't entirely prepare you for what the reality, the 9 to 5, quote unquote, reality of this job. So I guess in closing, I had a bunch of questions I wanted to know about. And so I asked those questions, but I want to ask you, is there anything we didn't touch on today that you might want people to know?
So I'm really honored to be here. I'm very excited. It wasn't in my immediate sights. I didn't see it coming. So I was a little bit blindsided by the opportunity, and I'm grateful for it. I think most of my excitement is that I get to work with a dynamic team. I think the executive board is great. I hope to, I have some goals. I want to identify efficiencies, providing financial oversight. I would like to continue working to identify funding in the county's operating budget to address recruitment and retention issues. That's a huge issue, not only was it a huge issue at Parks for our members? It's a huge issue
Everywhere.
countywide.
Yeah.
And I know that there's work that was done, but there's a lot more work to be done, and we hear it and we see it and we're listening. And, it doesn't just impact our members. It impacts their livelihoods, our livelihoods, and it impacts the general public as well, like we touched upon. And I'm hoping to work with our PAC team to endorse labor and AME-friendly candidates for 2023 elections. That's exciting, including our own AME-announced candidate and the open county executive seat, which is going to be another hot number.
Huge.
So just hoping to ensure that we are prepared as possible for the 2024 contract negotiations with whoever our new county executive ends up being, and I'm hoping to be a strong player in all of this.
Awesome. I think you will be. So my guest this morning was Anna Marie Cuccinella, AME Treasurer. Anna, thank you for spending some time with me this morning and talking this stuff through.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Happy to have you. And to our listeners, we'll speak to you next week.